today we are going to use Kuretake paints, and we are using the lovely warm colours: cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, cadmium scarlet, a little bit of the cobalt violet, and maybe a little bit of purple. So I've got a small brush and I have got my copper-pressed watercolour paper all taped down nicely, and I've taped it with quite a bit of a border around it because I think that looks quite nice when you peel away the tape. So I'm using wet on wet technique. I'm putting the colour into the already wet paint and I'm sort of graduating that paint up. So that has left some really nice marks there. And I've got some gold paint here, and I'm pushing the brush down, lifting it up, pushing it down, lifting it up, and it makes these lovely patterns. So I'm going to do that again, but pushing it down in that recess there. Now I've still got some paint left on this brush and I really don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to dab some little marks into the top paint there. And I'm quite happy with that. I'm grabbed a little bit more water, grabbing some pink colour here. I think that might be a Rose Madder Deep, and I am just putting some line across, grabbing some yellow there and just putting the colours in across the page. So you can use your favourite colours. You don't have to follow my colours. Any colours you want you can put together. I would say maybe for this painting, because you're merging all the colours together, use colours that are similar, and then it gives a nice uniform kind of look. So, and it's nice when they mix together. And then I'm just adding a little bit more red here, pressing the brush onto the page to make these leaf shapes. So just going across the page like that with the same colour, adding some more when I feel the paint's running out, and that just goes across as a band at the bottom there. And then I'm just doing the centre bit, so the stem, and grabbing some more red and letting the paint granulate there. The paint's still wet on the page, so I'm adding some colours and they will just spread out and merge with the underneath paint. Gives a really nice effect. I'm doing the same process with these leaf patterns here. The more you play and experiment, the more relaxed you will feel with your paints and mark making. So do a few of these if you want to build up your confidence in doing this, and just think to yourself, it doesn't really matter what happens, I'm just doing it for the fun of it, just because I enjoy painting. And I think when you let go of that preconception that everything's got to be perfect, then you find yourself enjoying it, and then you find those pieces that, wow, they really do amaze you. So I've let the paint dry and I've grabbed my white Posca pen here. I've had a little bit of trouble with this pen. It doesn't seem to flow as easy as some of the others. So I will show you in a bit what I have to do to get that working. I've got a black fine liner and adding some detail here, and I've got a gold Uniball broad pen, and that gives some lovely little detail there. So just adding some little lines on that white Posca pen there, and I think that's a really nice detail. Really quite like that. I'm adding some little black marks into the gold paint there, and just continuing where there are the bigger, thicker areas there. And then I'm moving on to use the gold pen, and again just bringing up that pen, marking on that white paper. So it's just like little lines coming from that gold. It almost looks as though it could be the same colour as the gold paint, so that looks quite sweet. And then adding some little dots inside of those black marks. So I am now going to outline, and this is where I started having a problem. So I decided that I would try and get some paint out and put it in the top right hand corner there. So there's like a little puddle that I'm using there. Keep going back to it and grabbing some paint. So if you do have a problem, then maybe that's something you could consider. So again, I've got my pen again, my gold pen, and adding some little tiny chain linkage. So linking that chain across the page And again, with the white Posca pen that I'm having a problem with, just some little lines there. The colours that I've used sit together on the colour wheel, and they're referred to as analogue palettes. So they're colours that sit together pretty well just because they sit next to each other on that colour wheel. And then we're just adding some accent colours just to draw your eye. So that's where we're introducing the gold, the black pen and the white Posca pen, and that just gives a little bit of interest to our page. So I'm adding some little black lines into that negative space because I thought the white looked too white, so it just sort of shades it down a little bit there. And then going back to my white pen, outlining some of these gold marks just to make them bounce off the page, otherwise they're not very prominent and you can't really see them. So if you get that and you find that colours have merged too much into each other and you're not finding any shapes or depth or interest, then that's what your pen's for, is to make those marks so that your eye's drawn over the page and makes it a lot more interesting. I've now swapped up for the white Uniball pen, and it's a lot liner than the Posca pen. I'm just adding some lines there onto that gold paint for a little bit of interest there. Sometimes it can be very hard to know when to stop, but I wouldn't worry about it. If you're having a great time, just continue. Even if you go over the top and you think, oh, I think I might have ruined that painting. Well, does it really matter? No, I don't think so. It's just about having that lovely time, enjoying yourself. You'll always have an opportunity to do another one, and that's where the practice comes in. If you do one and you can just see where it leads you, and then on your next one, if you want a little bit of perfection, you can take some of the elements that you did in your first one and transfer it into your second. So your first one could be seen as a test piece. So I'm just peeling off the tape, and that's revealing a lovely border. I've got a lovely thick border there because I've got quite thick tape that I'm using, and I've had to heat up the tape in order to get that off without ripping my paper, and bringing it up to the camera so you can see the lovely detail there. And I think it's turned out quite nice. I love the warm colours. I think they're really summer-like, and it's really worked well with some of the other paintings that I've done recently. And you can see those there, and you can see the videos for that one on the right on my channel.